Hey guys and gals, Kevin Bupp here. I've got some very exciting news I'd like to share with you before we jump into today's show. Now, after closing on Fund 4's first acquisition of a $50 million institutional grade mobile home park, we're adding a second irreplaceable piece of real estate to the portfolio, and it's coming into the fund with over $1.5 million of built in equity for our investors day one. Now, when I say irreplaceable, I really do mean it. I mean, this is an affordable yet high-end waterfront mobile home park located in the Columbus, Ohio market. Quite literally, every single mobile home on this property is right on the lake, each with its very own personal boat dock, meaning a very high demand for affordable weekend getaway options, as well as year-round housing for working Americans. This is a true unicorn of a property, and you will not see another one like this come around again. It really is a one of a kind. A few other aspects worth noting. This park is producing stable and predictable cash flow day one. We're acquiring it with an excellent in-place Freddie Mac loan at a 3.3% interest rate for the next 8.5 years. This also includes a period of interest-only payments. Again, the simple supply and demand dynamics here are enough to get excited about. This is affordable lakefront real estate for both the working American families as well as folks looking to lock down a reasonably priced waterfront escape. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Visit investwithsunrise.com to register for our webinar and learn about all the wonderful aspects of this property going into Fund 4. Again, that's investwithsunrise.com. Now, let's get on to the show. Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast, where our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Now, our guest for this week's show is serial entrepreneur and real estate developer, Jerry Rosengarten. Now, Jerry is a Brooklyn-born serial entrepreneur whose greatest skill is the extraordinary ability to perceive form and structure and opportunity from within disorder, including developing products that deal with dyslexia, reimagining real estate, and investing early and heavily in solar energy. Now, Jerry's first big win came in the 1970s with the leisure suit, which I'm excited to chat with him about here today, and which ultimately became a cultural fashion phenomenon that stoked his confidence and staked his growing desire to build landmark New York projects like the Lofts and the Bowery Hotel. Now, today, Jerry owns one of the largest private solar farms in the Northeast, located on Long Island's eastern tip, and his creative passions are focused on environmental stewardship and active advocacy for those suffering from learning disabilities. And so with that, guys, it's an honor to welcome Jerry to the show. My friend, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited to have you here. Excited to talk about everything and anything today. I think there's a litany of topics that we're going to cover here. I think we can go just about any direction with this show, and it's going to be a great one. But how about we start with a little bit more of your background? I gave you that brief introduction there. You've been an active entrepreneur and real estate developer for 50 plus years. You've had a lot of other things that you've had your hands in over those multiple decades. But maybe let's just back up a little bit. Maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself, kind of your more so related to upbringing, but ultimately how you found your way into becoming an entrepreneur or real estate developer.
Okay, so let's start with the fact that I'm dyslexic, and I had a very bad experience in school, and that I actually design, and that design is how I make my money. Whether it's real estate, whether it's clothing, whether it's an Apple product, whatever it is. And I have a book which is called Jump on the Train. The fact of the matter is, that's what I do. I jump on the train and take it to the end. Each of those individual trains are concepts, are designs, are looking at a marketplace where there are people in demand. Now, that's kind of what I've done over the years. The leisure suit was a thing out of high school. No, I'm sorry. I was out of 2 years of college. I had been working in men's clothing stores, two separate ones at the same time. One was very traditional, and the other one was catering to beauticians and mafia guys. So it was very avant-garde. And I guess I realized that there was a market someplace in between, that no one had made something that was casual, that you could wear to work and was um, cool. Because when it started, it was cool.
Was that the was that was the leisure suit really the kind of your the first full foray into I've got an idea, I see an opportunity in the marketplace, and I'm going to execute on it, and ultimately is that the first time that you had an idea go full cycle?
Um, the answer to that question is yes, but I had no idea I had an idea. All I knew was when I was making a garment that, and it really was happenstance. I made a garment that is a long. It's in the book. I created something, took it to sell to manufacturers, um, and a woman who was the major writer for the Menswear Daily came in, looked at it, and said, "Well, I was showing it to buyers." She looked at it and said, "That'll sell. I'm going to call it the leisure suit," and that's how it started.
And that was it.
Okay.
You didn't know that you were a businessman at the very beginning of it, but ultimately it turned into something huge. And I guess maybe some of the lessons that you learned along that first train ride that ultimately you've leveraged and instilled and integrated into other products and developments that you've had here over the past couple of decades. I mean, give me some of the big lessons and the big takeaways, if you would.
The big lesson is you're going to always run into competition. You're going to always be knocked off. And the problem with that in products today is you really can't compete. So why go to a product that you can't compete on? On the other hand, real estate, every piece of real estate is unique. So you don't have to compete. Still designing, you're still building differently than somebody else. So you're still doing something that's different, at least in my uh, concept. You're doing something different than the next guy. They'll eventually copy you, all right, if you're successful. But basically, it's still that piece of real estate was yours.
Well, what point did you leverage some of the skill sets that you were acquiring again during the kind of the run of the leisure suit? When did you take some of those skill sets and parlay them into real estate development? And what was that first project?
First project occurred when I was in the leisure suit business. I rented 10,000 square feet of the MGM building, which was a major building at that time, and I paid $3 a square foot, which was it's crazy in New York, all right? And I didn't need all the space. I moved my back office out to Jersey, and I rented the back office for $6 a square foot. So for the first time, I learned you can make money in real estate because I was living rent free.
Hmm.
Okay. And I took that when I ended up closing the textile business. I realized that was one of the ways I made money over the years. So I also built a factory. So I realized that I can do that. And now I'm looking for a job. And I looked for a job. I wanted a job with no employees. I wanted a job with just cash money.
Hmm.
That's the job I wanted. I looked at a Boar's Head route. I looked at a pizza place. I looked at that because it was debilitating, right? The end of the leisure suit because we fell off the cliff. I fell off the cliff. The whole industry ended. Um, and then I realized I couldn't do that. And I started looking at Manhattan. Manhattan was really in trouble. Major manufacturers were moving out of lower Manhattan.
This was just for a time frame. Is this in the 80s?
This was in the 80s.
Yeah.
They were early 80s. Um, they were moving out. And what happened was artists rented their spaces. Now, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about when I talk about a loft, right?
Sure do. Yep.
Lofts are like very big spaces compared to apartments, compared to a lot of other things. So these artists were renting the space, and then they were converting a portion of the space because they were using it as for their studios into residential, but they were illegal because they were in manufacturing zones. So I realized that was an opportunity, and I started to buy some loft buildings and convert them to residential, but legal residential buildings. So no one could ever come in and take and kick the tenants out. And the fact of the matter is, that was my next venture.
What was the the real value add component? I mean, if we break it down to numbers, so there was obviously probably lots of vacancy in New York at this point in time. So those artists, which typically are, I'm not going to say poor artists, but like they're looking for cheaper space to facilitate their business. Whether they're painting, what have you, designing things, but normally that type of space would probably rent cheaper per square foot than that of what you might be able to rent residential space per square foot. Is that the value opportunity that you saw, that ultimately, hey, I can buy this stuff for X number of square foot, change the zoning, get it approved for residential, legal residential use, and then ultimately double or triple the amount I can charge per square foot? Was that the plan?
Um, I don't know if I was sophisticated as that.
But you knew you could buy it cheaper
What,
and make it worth more. So let's make it simple, right?
so what happened basically was, first of all, the space. It's all a matter of space. I mean, that's what real estate is. You're buying and you're selling space. Now, the creativity of what you do with the space is how you make the money. In this particular instance, um, I picked buildings. I picked one building that had a view of the World Trade Center and the Empire State Building from the same chair. At that time, I had an architect. He told me, you can't do this building. It's not, you can't do it. So I got a new architect and I did the building. Very few places in the city of New York could do what I just said. I mean, that chair is gold.
When you bought this property, Jerry, was it would you classify it would you have classified it as a distressed property, like it was vacant, weren't a lot of other uses for it, and just the timing was right for you to take advantage of a distressed time in the city, or just thoughts?
I knew its price was right. I don't know if you can call
Okay,
it
fair
best or
enough.
not. It was I could make money from it because I knew what I could create there.
Mm-hmm.
And once once it's in the book. I purchased it. I ended up making um, decent money and going on to the next project. You have to understand, when I left the textile business, I really had nothing. I had my house, and that was it. Because I didn't leave anyone high and dry. Paid all the bills, and that was it.
Let's dive into that a little bit. I mean, because not having much, not too many financial resources at that point in time. I mean, surely it was there was challenges you faced getting that first deal done, that first real estate deal. I mean, talk to me about some of the creativity that you brought to the table, and how you were able to pull the various pieces of that puzzle together and ultimately turn out what you did, which was a successful project. I mean, surely it wasn't as simple as you found the right building at the right price. I mean, there was a lot more to it than I think. That's important foundation. you've done so many deals now. Fast forward, 40, 50 years, you know, you're taking, we're talking a little snapshot in time, but really at that, when you're in the heart of that moment, it was like that was your life, right? Like that was this that had to work out. Like that deal had to happen. You probably had sleepless nights over it. There was financial strain, stress, all. So like, would love to unpack that a little bit because I think it's important. Just we all go through these different ebbs and flows as real estate developers and investors. I've got my own stories, right? Like and now I look back and it's just a blip on the radar screen. But however, in that moment, it was everything, and it was like make it or break it, and it was stressful, but it's kind of it's how we build character. It's how we turn into who we are, right? And like it's just it's the patch that we wear, the honor patch that we get to wear on our shoulder. So would love to learn more about it. Would love to unpack it. And I know it's in the book, but assuming that there might be some that don't go, grab the book. Hopefully everyone does. Would love to, from your own words, a little bit more about the story if you would.
In answer to the question, I financed the purchase of that first building by selling my house.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's that's
I,
that's that's putting both feet in the fire.
yeah, well, it was, but kind of that's me.
Yeah,
Uh, you know, you don't change who you are. I mean, and my wife and my kids were okay. I set up a house not too far away that we rented, but I had the capital to do the deal. And I sold the house for enough money that I said to myself, if I can create 6 to 8 families in this, then I have a home run, right? And that's what I did. And again, at the time, lofts were becoming popular, and I had no competition. But it started to become popular, and I started to get competition.
sure.
And I actually took a vacation. And when I came back, I couldn't afford any more loft buildings.
Gosh, how long was that vacation?
It was only a couple of weeks.
Oh wow.
It was amazing. It's not that I easily afforded the first one or the
Well, they
second
say
one.
imitation is the biggest form of flattery, right? I mean, like, a good idea, like surely it's that just proves that your idea, you thought it was great at the time. Not many other folks thought of it. Ultimately, saw what you had achieved in the success, and just and saw an opportunity there. And so it's there's a good and a bad side of that, right? Of being creative and being the first one to market with a great idea. It's surely it's going to breed competition, but
I'm
um,
I'm of the nature to protect everything as much as I can from
mhm.
a standpoint of what I do. So I don't want to be knocked off, but there's no way of stopping being knocked off from a standpoint of what we're talking about. The only thing you have again is that real estate. So the main thing that you have to think if you want to make money in real estate is picking the right real estate with the right concept to utilize it.
No, I mean it's the old adage, location, 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 right? I mean, like first and foremost, location has to be right. If you get that part wrong and everything else is right, it's probably not going to work in your favor.
Well,
um,
there are gambles to do it in the wrong location, to make
yeah,
it the right to make it the right location.
yeah.
It's not like you can.
You can't
Um,
fix the market. You can't fix the neighborhood. You can't fix the entirety of the neighborhood or the market it's in. You can
I
take the
don't know.
nicest property, but if it's in a bad location, you're not gonna be able to fix the location. You can surely fix the property all you want, but you're not gonna be able to drive, create the demand drivers or the demand for that particular product because the location's wrong. But on the flip side of that, you can take a building that's in horrible condition, needs complete renovation, it's run down, it's been vacant, uninhabitable for years, but if it's on the right piece of dirt in the right part of the city or location, generally speaking, like it's a blank canvas. I mean, you can do whatever you want with it, right? And still finding winning endeavor on the back end because you got the location right. So
That's the easiest thing to do from my standpoint. And I'm not just saying this is something anyone should do. Um, do you know the Bowery in the city?
I know its location. I've never stayed there. I know a little bit of the history of it, like the story behind it. Just but I don't. I wouldn't say I
Because
personally know it.
the Bowery is what you just said, the worst location that you can get involved in. It was. It was where all the squeegee guys, where all the homeless were in the city of New York. And I decided to do something there that was economic. I decided to make it in a building, first a dormitory, second residential, retail, and parking. That was a home run in my opinion because I didn't have to. Uh, it would still sell, still rent. I wasn't selling at that point.
Hmm.
And and NYU was there, so and they were like um, 20,000 worth of shortage of dorm rooms in the city of New York. So all of that said, I can do this. And then I started to do it. And then halfway through it, I looked at where we were located and what the building was looking like. And I changed it to a hotel. And that's the Bowery Hotel. Now, the Bowery Hotel did exactly what you said. It turned the neighborhood. So now the numbers in the neighborhood have gone up dramatically, and it's different. But was it a gamble? Yes.
What really made you take that severe pivot from dormitory to a hotel? I mean, what were some of the key aspects that you were seeing? Well, it's not going to work as a dormitory for XYZ reasons, but it surely I feel confident that it's going to work as a hotel.
No, no. It would have worked. The original concept would have worked.
Okay,
I was
I got you.
I was sitting in a restaurant. The restaurant's called Balthazar. And the way it worked was they sat, a couples facing each other as you walk in. So I'm looking at my wife, and the next table is right there. And I'm talking to my wife, and the next table is talking about the Bowery, and they're building on the Bowery and what's going to happen to the Bowery. And I start listening to this. And I said, you know something? I could change this and make a lot more money, make the Bowery a destination location, and do that. So I explored doing that for about a month, and then I pivoted, like you say.
Was it
It turned
difficult to get
out-
your investors or bankers on board with this new vision, or was there no other money involved? Was it just purely your money in the deal?
Okay. Actually, I don't remember. The reality of this was that the dormitory are like hotel rooms. So the only thing that was changing dramatically was the upper floors from residential, which had not been built yet. Okay. Um, I brought in a hotel guy who was very well known and very good in hotels. And he and I backed it to finish it as a hotel and make it the Bowery Hotel, which is what it is now. And it's, uh, become a landmark.
Hmm. Yeah, no, fantastic.
You can,
Now,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, trying to tie this all back together, and especially as it relates to your book, Jump on the Train, and doing all this, all these different endeavors as an entrepreneur, but dealing with dyslexia. I think I'd read something, whether it's on your bio or maybe on your website, that um, that you weren't a truly a functioning reader until your 50s. I mean, so how does one, how do you manage those challenges in a world where reading contracts and documents and just architectural plans and all those pieces that have to go into the puzzle of doing a real estate deal? How does one manage?
You have a good brother, you have a good secretary, you have a good
Yeah.
lawyer. Everyone helped in doing that. I mean,
Hmm.
I made decisions based upon that information. Now, I didn't read the information. I mean, it's just the way that was. So it's like forming a way of dealing. It's like it's the habit that you follow.
At what age did you realize that you truly had a learning disability? Like, I don't feel like it truly was. I don't know when, what year or what year, what decade we formally identified dyslexia as a learning disability, and it really started getting a lot more attention. But I'm just curious as to, was there a certain age or a certain grade that you truly realized like something's going on here? Like, this is not normal. I'm trying and I'm just not getting it. Like, I
50 years old.
really, wow,
I listen. When I went to school, no one knew anything about dyslexia.
right.
They say they didn't. It wasn't public knowledge, and I didn't know it. All I knew is that I was slow, stupid, and not trying hard enough
Hmm.
because that's what I heard for most of my not high school, but most of my public school. That's where it started.
You think that's what gave you a lot of your grit, just to be like, screw it. I'll show you guys, right? I mean, seriously. I mean, like, that's just like push me into a corner, watch me punch my way out of it. I mean, is that, you feel like that's a lot of what built your character over the years?
I don't think it's as you just said that I punched my way out
Put
of
it
it.
in your own words, right? Not mine, but
I think that it helped me see things differently. I
okay.
think it helped me design wise, uh, leisure suit wise. It helped me see things that others didn't see.
Hmm.
And I took those things and ran with them. It's like that building I just described to you where someone could sit in that chair. I had an architect and an accountant, both telling me to walk away. Now, I don't know if I was trying to prove something that I was right, but I knew I was right.
Interesting. So the book, what was the catalyst to finally sit down and put a good part of your life and lessons learned, and just put all that down on paper? I mean, it's I've written a book. It's quite the process. Thought it would take me 8 months. It took me 4 years. Um, it's
What,
quite
the
quite an
book?
uphill uh,
No,
dredge.
the book, the book actually wasn't that long.
Oh, okay. Well
It
then,
was during COVID. My wife had written a short story. She showed me the short story and she said, "You should write a short story." I said, "I'm not writing a short story. I'm writing a book." And the bravado. And that's what I did. Every day for a year and more, I sat down at the typewriter and wrote this book. And I had someone on the other end of it dealing with me, my assistant, so that we got it right. You can combine these computers.
no, that's fantastic. So let's fast forward to today, or I guess maybe not to today, but I know that you're very involved in solar energy. But you were an early adopter. I mean, you were early to the game, and I've tried to read through and get some context on, years, like what time frame you really got involved in the solar game. But just would love here, from your perspective, talk to me about that side of your business endeavors, and what was the initial attraction, like what opportunity did you see before a lot of other folks? I mean, now it's a big deal, but sounds like when you were getting into that game, it wasn't yet. It wasn't on a mass scale.
That's true. And it may have been the first private solar farm that was built on the island. Um, what happened was my wife was, again, my wife was a big stimulus to me in doing stuff, but she still doesn't want me to do stuff too. Yeah. Um,
The voice of reason sometimes, right?
and you have to give in. So, so she was out and she was very upset and she came in. She's carrying a yellow piece of paper. And I said, what's your problem? Because obviously I thought it, actually, I don't think I said, what's your problem? I said, what did I do? So it turned out to be that that piece of paper was about the chemicals that were being put in the ground, that dogs and children should stay away. And she got very involved with that in her own head, put together a flyer, put it on all the neighbors' doors, and I don't know if it made a difference or not, but you don't see the difference. So I decided to build a greenhouse. It was the first time she woke me up to the environment and the problems in the environment. I was about to build this house. And I said, why don't I make this house an example for builders how to build a greenhouse so it's self-sufficient? And that's what I did. I didn't know what I was getting into because it's a lot longer. The manufacturers were non-existent, or if they were existent, they were fly by night, and that type of thing.
What
But
time frame was this, Jerry? Just to provide context for the listeners.
I don't know that I can tell you. Well, maybe I can. Let me, I'll, I'll look.
So why you're looking up there? I love, I'm gonna put this out there because I don't want to lose this one. Maybe it's how we wrap up the show here. I want to talk about the importance of a supportive spouse and the role that played in your overall success as a businessman. Because I've got my own story related to my wife, how she was there at a very critical, pivotal moment in my entrepreneur journey, and I mean, just became a voice of reason, the supportive infrastructure necessary to push through some really challenging times. So anyway, I just want to put that out there because I'd love to get your take on it as it relates to your wife and your relationship, and just her involvement, and just even just being a sounding board sometimes, right, as you work through some of these challenges along your journey. But anyway, back to the time frame. I want to get the time frame here so we can provide that context to the listeners of when you were
Yeah,
getting involved in this green build.
in answer to the question, it was 2012.
Okay, got
Now, and by the way, I don't remember any of these dates, so I really do have to go back to the book to.
it.
Um, my wife has been a support straight on through. She's a psychologist, and she's kept me sane. When I'm about to go crazy, she stops it. So the truth of the matter is that she's been there straight on through. Although, to her credit, she's trusted me to do what I've done.
hmm
Okay. All of these things that I've done, you lose sleep on. You have to. Even if you have the money to weather the storm and whatever the case may be, you don't want to make a mistake. You want to be right with whatever you choose to do. Um, and I've had things that I've been wrong about, and it's like that. I know that feeling. I don't want that feeling. I want the other feeling.
Yeah, no, it's again, just speaking to my wife, so many kudos and credit to her for just again being voice of reason, but also more so believing, with believing in me with some of the crazy ideas that I've had over the years, especially taking financial risk when probably one could have argued, many would have argued that you should not be taking this financial risk. It's too, the masses would say it's too risky. I say I see the opportunity, right? Like a lot of us entrepreneurs do. Um, but being supportive along the way, even if she might not have agreed with the idea or the vision, still supporting it and playing into my, my just desire to be, to build something, to create something new. So it's I don't know where I would be at if it wasn't for my wife. I mean, Lily, especially she came along, Jerry, at a point I had built up a fairly substantial portfolio in my early to late 20s, and then 2008 happened, and it was an incredibly challenging time. Lost a lot over a period of 3 years. It was down here in Florida. Florida was just kind of ground zero. One of the few states that was ground zero, where just very impactful.
Mhm.
The real estate
I
market
remember.
lost 50% of the value literally in a matter of like 4 or 5 months. 6 months. It was craziness, and I
I had a
couldn't get
project.
my way out of it fast enough. You couldn't unwind it fast enough. But I remember the one day. This is the story that say I wasn't. We weren't married yet. We'd only been dating. We'd only been dating for about 4 months, and I just knew that it was right. Like I been looking for the right woman for a while, and I knew it was her. And I remember the moment when I realized that I was going to have some major defaults that I wasn't able to work through with the banks and the lenders. It was all kind of mounting up, and I couldn't find a way out. And I didn't want to take her on this nasty journey with me, because I just knew it was going to be a shit show for probably many years to come. And I told her, I said, look, and she was in commercial banking, so she was well aware, really smart girl, financial background, really well aware of what was going on in the world, especially the U.S. Financial markets. And she said, "You'll figure it out." She kind of blew it off, and it was a very serious. I approached her as a very serious conversation about how, ultimately, like I'll probably end up losing my house. I'll probably lose my. I mean, like literally, this is probably the trajectory of how things are going to go over the next 12 to 18 months.
Mhm.
It lasted a lot longer than that, but she was like, "Yeah, you'll figure it out. I believe in you'll figure it out." And I'm like, "I don't think you understand the severity of what's going to play out here." And she just kind of blew it off, and I kind of let it be, and we hung out for another couple of months, and this is when it really hit home for her. But she didn't change her character or anything. We were literally at breakfast one morning, and there happened to be a car wash across the street from this place that we were eating breakfast. And at that point, Jared, I'd already started. A number of the banks had started. They saw some of the defaults on real estate, so they started shutting my credit card accounts off. I'd never defaulted on my consumer debt. They started shutting all that stuff off because they saw it as a risk. And so at that point, I was kind of just living with the cash I had. I literally had whatever cash I had in the account. Like that's what I had. I didn't have too much credit cards or anything like that. And so I went to pay after breakfast. I went to pay for this $10 car wash, and it got declined. My debit card got declined. And I had plenty of money in there, and it got declined. And I called the bank and found out that my bank account had been garnished to a substantial six figures of cash, garnished out there by a few different lenders. But anyway, I had to get her. This girl was still dating, pay for my $10 car wash, with her money, and then that was the point of realization for her that, okay, this is pretty real. This is pretty serious now. He literally has zero money, has negative money in his account, and she stuck with me, believed in the vision that I've worked my way out of it, and ultimately build something bigger on the back end. And so, anyway, it's just a true testament of her character and just really the support structure and how important it is. I think more so than anything else to have a supportive wife in your corner, supportive spouse, in your corner, and how important that is. So anyway, just that's my
What
own personal little story.
adds it, what's added is being deserving of that support.
Great point. No, I love that. I love
And
that.
if you really think about it, um, you really don't have any control of what's happening at that particular moment. But your character came through. I don't know how you got out of it. I don't know any of that stuff.
Oh, just
But
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, just time, just acknowledging the mess I was in, and just I mean day by day. And, the one thing I did do, Jerry, is you made a point. You said a lot of that it was out of my like there was this so many variables I couldn't control at that point. I mean, it was unwinding, and like there was no way just to put a stop to it. The only thing I could control in my life was how I felt, my health and fitness. And so I went on this deep dive journey into really health and fitness, ensuring that every day that I woke up, I felt as good as I possibly could, that my brain was as sharp as it possibly could be, that there was no, mental fog, and that I had absolute clarity so that all this crap coming my way, I could process it as efficiently as possible. And like that was truly my only one saving grace I felt. And that was one thing I could control. I could control what I put in my body. I could control what I put in my mind. I couldn't control getting served another lawsuit, knocking at the door every day. I couldn't control those items, but I surely could control how I felt and how I actually, how I was able to manage it, physically manage it. So, um, that was a big lifesaver for me.
Did you
And
learn?
I look better for my future wife as well, right? So she won as well.
What did you learn from it?
Yeah, that's it's a great question. A, a number of things. I think that probably the biggest lesson I started going through an exercise, mentally as this was all happening. It's like kind of a whatever the challenge of that particular day was, like um, what would seemingly be the end of the world to some people, right? Like they just kind of they stop whatever that challenge. They stop there. They don't go down the rabbit hole and really think of like the worst case scenario. What's the worst that could possibly happen here? So I ran this exercise through every single challenge I faced, financially going through that time. It's like what really is the worst case that happens here, right? Like they've already garnished my bank account, home was already in foreclosure. Uh, they can't take my arms, they can't take my legs, they can't take my will to fight and will to rebuild. They can't take my family away from me. They can't take my, she wasn't my wife yet, but my fiance. They can't take any of those really important things away from me. They can't
Mhm.
take that. They can only take material items away from me. So every time I had a challenge, I went through this like, what's the worst case scenario? Whenever I came up with the answer, I would ask myself that question again. What's really the worst case scenario? Like how far does it really go? And what ultimately is the final worst outcome that could transpire from this scenario? And normally it might have been bad, but it wasn't catastrophic. It wasn't loss of life. It wasn't loss of loved ones. It wasn't any of that stuff, which is by far the most important. I mean, like that's all that really mattered. And so it just that really like that helped me be able to process challenging situations as time went on. I mean, just anytime one of those major events would occur in my life, or still does occur, I just always go through this mental exercise. Like it's almost by nature now. I go through that mental exercise of like truly what is the worst case that might happen, as a result of this, and that helps me prioritize. Like, is it really that big of a deal, or does it get stacked down here? Because really, at the end of the day, again, there's not gonna be a loss of loved ones, a loss of arms, limbs, anything like that. Like nothing that's detrimental for me living and moving on to the next day. So I would say that's the biggest. I mean, many other lessons, but that was by far the biggest. It just helped me process stressful times um, in a much more efficient manner.
I have another question. How was it getting back on the horse?
How was it getting back on the horse? It was tough. Um, it was tough. It was as far as getting back on the real estate horse. Really, really challenging. I built a couple other businesses in the interim that were health and fitness related that allowed me to keep my mind off of all the chaos that was happening on the other side of my life.
Mhm.
Um, Focus on health, which was very important to me, still is today. But also make money, be able to like still feed myself and things like that. Um, but when it came time to get back on the real estate horse, it was tough. It was tough emotionally. That was one aspect. But 3 years had passed, and so like I was mentally prepared to like to get back up and rock again. Everyone knows the old adage of you buy when there's blood in the streets, right? However, it's really difficult to like step back from the bubble and actually see that opportunity when it's your blood that's in the streets, right? And so I I almost felt more so I had like a FOMO, a fear of missing out by the time I finally jumped back into it in 2011 of like I just missed maybe some of the greatest buying while I've been dealing with all this mess. I've also at the same time
That's
missed
good
some of
stuff.
the best buying opportunities ever because I couldn't get my damn head out of the sand. I couldn't not necessarily face the music, but just get back up on that horse sooner, right? And just face reality and say, hey, this time to do it differently, time to do it better, time to rebuild. Um, so anyway, like that's it was
But
tough, but I was by the time when I did the first deal, it was I was back. The biggest challenge there was credit. My credit was horrific, so I had to really sell. The biggest challenge, financial world was still in a crisis mode. 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15. I mean, like really things didn't start taking a major pivotal turn until like 2016, probably, right? Like where really the world would have said like, I think we've hit our recovery point, right? Up until that point, it was still touch and go. And so getting investors on board with this new vision of like how I'm, kind of what I foresee as the opportunity now and why they should be on board. And because I didn't have the credit, I didn't have the financial means. Most of my money was gone. I mean, I had a little bit of money that I'd made through some of the side businesses I'd started, but that was like being able to actually get start rebuilding with really no financial means to do so. Or now, with a tarnished track record kind of behind me, I could justify what happened, why it happened,
it'll make a
but
difference.
getting someone to believe and why they should come along for this ride the second time around was really challenging. That was the biggest challenge by far.
Yeah, no, I
So
can. Matter of fact, during that time, I went to Russia because the real estate business here was dead. Know what you're talking about. I
yeah.
had a project in uh, Del Rey that I had 100% sold,
Mm.
and one of them closed. So it was, obviously you got to be careful. You have here in the back, you have a book that says cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Okay?
Yeah, I try to hit you in the face by stacking on all the shelves, but yeah, so that's the book I wrote a couple years
Okay.
back, and
That
called the
book,
Cash Flow Investor.
in my book, I talk about the drizzler. If you're going to be in business and starting out, you got to first make a drizzler. Um, I define the drizzler as a short little coat that London Fog made. London Fog was a manufacturer of raincoats.
I remember. Yep.
And every day, every minute, they made a coat, this little coat. And that little coat covered the cash flow of the whole business. So the concept is that you need a drizzler. And I agree with the cash flow book.
Yeah, no, I love it. My entire investment philosophy revolves around buying cash flow, buying assets that have positive cash flow, or short, soon after acquisition can get to a positive cash flow state and can create a reoccurring revenue stream for you for many years or decades to come.
You're different than me because I create um, cash flow. I mean, I've never bought a business, someone else's business. Just never done that.
Mhm.
I don't even think I could negotiate that.
Well, I like to buy not broken, but businesses that I see that are not being run efficiently, that aren't necessarily broken per se, but have just inefficiencies I can identify, that I know that I can easily fix over a short duration of time. And that's I've just gotten really good at that, fixing or running things more efficiently than the individual prior to me, or just seeing additional opportunity in that same business, that additional revenue streams that they hadn't considered. But really, it's just like you, it's an art to a certain
I,
degree.
I might do that.
But I like the existing cash flow. I like buying into something that's got a little bit of a foundation, so it's already got money coming in, and I know that I can quickly build upon it. And so to me, that's more. There's more of a comfort level of
Yeah,
not
no,
necessarily taking on the entirety of the risk of having zero cash flow, which I've done too. But generally speaking, I like to have some money coming in the door so I can just stack upon it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jerry, this has been a fun conversation. I would love to, for those that want to grab a copy of the book. Where's the best place to to find it? Is it Amazon? Do you have a dedicated website? Just please go ahead and plug and let folks know where they can track it down.
Amazon, it's Amazon, and it's a big bookstore.
Barnes and Noble, is that the one that's still around?
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah, they are. I think they're doing
That's
okay.
crazy, which I have no idea how, but yes, they are still around.
So
Yeah.
they reinvent themselves every day. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Well, Jerry, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Very fun conversation. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go, but it's I feel like it's been a very productive, just enjoyable conversation. Getting to learn a little bit more about you and your time in the business and just what you've done over your life. And I know that's just like a drop in the bucket of what your story is and what folks can learn in the book. Um,
by
Lastly,
the way,
before we jump off, is there do you have a website outside of the book? Is there, for folks that want to learn maybe more about you, your story, get in touch with you, is there anywhere else that you'd like to send them outside of just the book itself?
jumponatrain.com. That
Okay.
gives you everything.
Well, there you
Okay.
go. There
What
you
did
go.
I thank you for sharing.
No, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and just being vulnerable and transparent. And it's I think those that tuned in, they got a lot of value from the show. So that's all we can ask for, right? Just
Right.
help
Okay.
enlighten the lives of others. So, and I think we've done that today.
Thank
So,
you, Gary.
with that, my friend, you take care. It was a pleasure meeting you, and have a great day. Okay.